Now we're learning BATI LGANI. We're continuing. BATI LGANI is the last Hasidic discourse which was given by the previous Rebbe. It was spoken way before that, but it was the last Hasidic discourse that was printed and given out to be learned by the Hasidim, that was given from the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe. And I already showed you pictures of the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe. And we take this as the Rebbe's last instructions on how to continue his work and bring the Mashiach. So the Rebbe points out, as we made the summary last time, but we'll do it this time again, that God created the world because he wants to be revealed here. And he was revealed here. And when God is revealed in the world, what does it mean? That everyone feels responsible to the creator of the universe, and everybody feels important, and everybody feels that that they have to, a tremendous potential, and we have to reveal this potential and improve the world, and in thought, speech, action, feeling. Everyone is dynamic, but that was the way the world was. But then Adam ate from the tree, and as soon as he ate from the tree, so God's presence went away. In other words, there was less feeling of responsibility to the world. And then afterwards, the ensuing generations, God's presence went further and further away, and people didn't feel responsible to God. They didn't even feel that there is God until came along Abraham. Abraham came along, and he reversed the whole process. It says he brought God's presence, called the Shekhinah. He brought God's presence down from the seventh heaven to the sixth heaven. So there was a little more, how do you say, a little more user-friendly, the idea that God exists and that God wants things. And Yitzchak brought godliness from the sixth heaven to the fifth. And it was closer and closer and closer to this world until Moses came. Moses came and he built the temple, he built the the tabernacle, and he instilled this tabernacle in each and every one of us and showed us how we now can keep God's presence in this world, keep it in the world, and we have to just simulate in ourselves the work of the tabernacle, holy temple. Tabernacle is the same thing as holy temple. Tabernacle is called the temple. Essentially, mikdash, that was the tabernacle. What was in the tabernacle? What was the main thing in the tabernacle? So up to now, we've discussed 4 things. One thing we discussed is there were sacrifices. Sacrifices. The word for sacrifice means to come close. Korban. And that we have the ability to come close to God. How? By using our animal self, our selfishness. That's what we have to make come close to God. That's how we make God happy. Korban. Sacrifice. We're not alone. We don't have to worry about so much. One of the way we do this is by thinking. You have to think about God. You have to contemplate about God. You have to contemplate God is creating me. God is good. God gave the Torah. He's giving the Torah. He took us out of Egypt. Think, contemplate. Okay, that's the fire from below. But there's also a fire from above. That's what's called the godly soul in a Jew. Godly soul. So we've got help. First of all, help in serving God. First of all, we already are a holy temple, and we already have the animal to sacrifice, and we already have the fire that comes from heaven to sacrifice, through the sacrifice. And also we have the fire that comes from below, which is our thinking about God, contemplating. And we have the walls. The walls are made from shittim wood. Oh, this is what the Rebbe is talking about. The walls are made from shittim wood. Shittim, the word shittim means crazy, shtut. Stud, crazy. We have the ability to be crazy for God. Like we just finished learning about Nachshon ben Amminadab. We have the ability to be crazy for God. Shtut, says the Rebbe, but it's not so simple. Why? Because this world makes us crazy for the world. And people are willing to do things in order to get pleasures or power or whatever it is in this world that are insane, that are self-destructive, that are destructive. And that's what makes the world go around, right? Nowadays, is whoever can be more selfish and more this and more crooked and more this, so they succeed more. Which we see that through the generations, that's how it's been. And so the Rebbe is trying to reverse this whole process and telling us that stop and think for yourself. That's not the reason you're created. That's not the reason you're here in the world. That's not the reason that God enlivens you, is that you should be selfish and do things for yourself. That's not the reason. It's the opposite, the reason why you're here. The intention of God, the reason God created the world, is in order that we should refine it. And what happens exactly the opposite? Not only do we not remove the concealment of the world, but the world adds concealment to us. So we're doing the opposite. So how do we get out of it? So we're going to see in a moment, but this is insanity. This, says the Rebbe, this is craziness of the world, worldly crazy. You know you're not creating yourself. You know you're not enlivening yourself. How can you go against your creator? How can you go against? Because that's what I want to do. That's what I want to do. Leave me alone. That's called craziness of klippa. Craziness of the bad side. Okay. Dalit, I think we're going to skip over because he wants to say in Dalit, he wants to come and tell us that the Jewish soul, the essence of the Jewish soul, is always attached to God. But the commandments are individual strings. The soul is like a rope that attaches from above to below. And that the commandments are little strings. So when a person doesn't do one or two commandments, or then he doesn't feel that he's being separate from God. But a Jew will never deny his Judaism. He won't deny totally. He won't say, I'm not a Jew. Very rare do you see it. And if he does it like outside. Maybe, somebody says, you want to put on tefillin, he says, I'm not a Jew, leave me alone. But to his inside, he knows and he feels that he is a Jew. Right? The biggest, atheists or whatever, that they hate the religious people, they hate the Torah, they take this, but nevertheless, if you say, I'm a better Jew than you, they get angry. Right? They get angry. That's the way Jews are. Doesn't make any sense, but that's the way it is. Right? You tell a Mexican that he left Mexico like 2 generations ago, his parents left, and now he lives in New York. And you tell him, you're a bad Mexican. He'll say, okay, you're right, I'm not a Mexican. Take a Jew that his parents left Judaism 3 generations ago. He lives in New York, doesn't talk Jews. None of his friends are Jews. And you go to him and say, you're a bad Jew. He'll say, who are you? Drop dead, right? I'm just as good as you. All of a sudden, his Jewish identity is always there. So because it's always there, and his connection to God is always there, so therefore, it's impossible for him to cut it off. And on the other hand, it's always there waiting to be reattached. Okay. Just like there is Hatia, just like there is craziness from below normal, which that's called shtus of klippa. And also similarly, yeshno, there is there is Hatia, an inclination which is above normal. And this is what's called shtus of kedusha. This is going to be the boards which make up the tabernacle. And the Rebbe is going to point out another place, but not here, that another name for these boards are called karashim, keresh. And the letters keresh, kuf, resh, shin, are the same letters as sheker, lie. So you can take lies, which this world is a big lie, and it's trying to tell us that God doesn't exist, or God is far away, or people were essentially bad. Whatever the world is trying to tell us is a lie. And we can change this around to keresh, to be an attachment, to be a board, one of the boards of the temple. And that's also the same word as kesher, to be attached to God, tied to God. Okay, but that's not what he says over here. But our job is to transform the sheker of this world, the keresh, and that we do by means of shtut, craziness. You've got to be crazy or it's not going to work. Judaism doesn't work. What type of craziness is this? We just talked about the previous Rebbe being like Nachshon ben Erenov, jumping into the sea, risking his life. Here's another story. The rabbis say there's a Gemara in Ketuvot. It says that it was said about Rebbe Yehuda Bar Ilai that when he would go to a wedding, he would take a stick of hyssop, a stick, and he would dance in front of the bride and throw the stick up. Rabbi Shmuel Bar Yitzchak, he would take 3 sticks. He would juggle. Zorak Echad, he would jump, throw one up, and he would receive the other one. That's what Rashi says. Omer Reb Zera would say, now it seems that this Reb Shmuel Bar Yitzchak, he was like the elder of all the rabbis. He was an elder rabbi. All the other rabbis, let's say, were 30, 40, 50, he was 80 years old. Right? Let's say, it doesn't say how old, but he was old. Omer Reb Zera says, Ka machsif lan saba. He is embarrassing us. This man. There are weddings today also, not in Chabad, we don't have weddings like this, but there's very nice weddings and religious weddings. And what the rabbis come. When the rabbis come, they add an atmosphere of austere, of seriousness to the wedding. The wedding is not just what do you call a fun game jumping around. It's very serious, and they come and they're very serious, and they dance a little bit, and when they dance, they just sort of move their feet a little bit, and that's like a big deal. And when they clap their hands, maybe they just clap, a little bit. They clap their hands like this or something. But the main thing is they add a holiness to the whole thing, which is a very nice thing. And they take it from the way it was in the Talmud. In the Talmud, there would be a big wedding, and all the friends of the bride and the groom, they were dancing, and they were there. And of course, separately, the bride is separate, and the grooms were separate. They had a big separation between them, so the boys wouldn't see the girls. Never this. They were dancing. Everyone was dancing. Not the rabbis. The rabbis would come. Ooh, the rabbis come. This is a big thing. The rabbis come. No, we see this is a holy occasion. This is a holy occasion. And the rabbis would just stand there and they would look, maybe they would clap a little bit. And there would come Rabbi Shmuel Bar Yitzchak. And he would also stand and look, and suddenly he would whip out 3 sticks and start dancing with the young people, and everybody would stand around and he would juggle. And Rabbi Zera, he was like the big chief rabbi in that time. He said, cut it out. Stop it. You're embarrassing us. He's embarrassing us. You're slighting the honor of the Torah scholars, and you're acting foolish with yourself. You're acting like a child. It says, when he died, when Reb Shmuel Bar Yitzchak, when he passed away, there was a big pillar of fire that stood between him and everyone that came to his funeral. And it says that the pillar was in the shape of one of these sticks that he juggled. Omer Reb Zera said, Ahani le shuti the Saba. It says, look like we made a mistake. Reb Zera said, we made a mistake. That God is pleased from the shoti. There's 3 meanings. The shoti of Saba. Either it means his sticks, or it means his policy, what he did, or his craziness. Shoti. What says shot shel hadas? A stick of this hadas of hyssop that he would juggle. Some say it means shtuti, the Sabbath, the craziness that he did. Shute means, and some people say shitute means his they say his policy. His policy. Shitosav minago. This was his policy, that he would come to weddings and he would act like a fool. In any case, Reb Zera said we were wrong, and we were wrong. That he danced with these sticks and that he was crazy and he did this, and that was his policy, that he did it at every wedding. Right? We thought that he would act normal like us. We saw that no, acting normal like us is not pleasing to God. It's not displeasing, but no one, other rabbis passed away. We never saw a pillar of fire in the shape of a stick standing between him and everybody else. Obviously, this is what God wants. Says the Rebbe, I want you to be like Shmuel Bar Yitzchak. Don't be like Reb Zera. Don't be normal Jews, that you're going to go to heaven 100% and wonderful. You have to be a crazy Jew. But he only did this at weddings. Why did he do it at weddings? Because it was proper to do this at a wedding. They didn't feel what happened at a wedding. What really happens at a wedding? That a man and a woman get married. Man is Ish. A man, that's Ish with a Yud. Fire with the letter Yud. And a woman, that's fire with the letter Hey. Kasher Zocho, if they have merit, Hariyem Yud Hey, God's name. This comes in a revelation. It's called Binyan Adayad. It becomes an eternal building. Their children and their children's children, their children's children also keep the Torah. If so, Harizeh, this is Madrega Gavoa. At a wedding, it's a very high thing. You're taking two fires, which could be the destruction of the world, right? The improper sexual relationships is destroying the whole world. It can destroy everything. The licentiousness. It says that the perversion, that was one of the reasons for the flood. It says that everything had perverted its ways. Right? Hashchis kol basar. Some people say that's where the before that's where the dinosaurs came from. Okay, anyway, but everything was perverted. Perverted. And it says, why is everything perverted? Because that's the way God created people. Male, the sexual drive of a man, the sexual drive of a woman, it's like two fires coming together. It can be a very destructive thing. But at a wedding, at a Jewish wedding, as if their merit, there's the Yud and the Hey. Yud and the Hey is God's name, is also in them. And you can take this fire and use it for good purposes. Have children, happiness, invite guests into your house, spread Torah, spread Judaism. That's, and you say, vitality. Therefore, in order to this, when does this all begin? At a wedding. Therefore, at a wedding, there's tremendously high revelations. And when Rav Shmuel Bar Yitzchak, he acted accordingly to these big revelations that were happening at the wedding, crazy. And when he acted in a crazy way to make them even more happy, there was stopped a pillar of fire between them. Just a small thing. Why is it such a big deal to make the bride and the groom happy? In Judaism, it's a really very important thing to make the bride and the groom happy. By non-Jews also, they make a big wedding party, a huge thing. Ideally, it's make the bride and groom happy, because getting married is a very risky business. Very risky business, especially in Judaism. And you get married, you have a lot of obligations, and you don't know what the future is going to bring. And it's very, very rare that there's sometimes it's permissible, but generally not, birth control. So the families are big, which means the debts are big. And there's also personalities are many, right? And you have to deal with everybody. And so maybe it's better not to get married. You'll have a nice, calm life, and you don't have any children, and everything is calm. So getting married is, if a person thinks about it, it's a very serious business, and maybe it's better not to get married. So therefore, you make the bride and the groom happy. Make them happy. Here the Rebbe is saying, why make them happy? Because the fact is, getting married is a tremendously holy thing. And that when you get married, you're not alone. It's not just you and the bride. Now God is a special revelation and help for you. That's the idea of revealing light of godliness in a revealed way at the wedding. Okay, says the Rebbe, everything is really a wedding. And when God created the world, so the world was like, so to speak, the bride without the groom. When God created man, so man was the one that linked God together with the world. That's like a wedding. That's we learned. BATI LGANI. That's the whole name of this mimer. BATI LGANI, LGANUNI, the wedding canopy. So a wedding is a very happy thing. And a wedding is happening all the time. And so every moment is supposed to be a happy thing. Let's explain this. Hine Orain Sov, the infinite light of God, Leis Machshavat Tafisa Beklal. There's no thought that can grasp what God is. Right? There's these people that say, I have proof of God's existence. That's ridiculous. Right? You can't prove. You can prove that, that there are indications that there is God. And it makes no sense to say the world just created itself. But it makes less sense to say there's some sort of a God that creates it. It's not perceptible. You can't understand it. And so it says, there's no thought that can grasp God at all. That's what God is. God is creating us. He creates intelligence. God creates the spiritual. God is not spiritual. But on the other hand, God is creating us. There's no thought that could possibly grasp what God is. God is infinitely far from us and is infinitely close. But God is above comprehension. Call a saga, that the whole idea of understanding things, hine gam hayoter nalis, no matter how high, or the arizal, the highest Kabbalistic ideas, nevertheless, this is understandable. But those things which are not in the category of understanding, you can't grasp them with understanding at all. It's like trying to hear colors. Colors are not in the category of sound. They're not right? No matter how much you try to listen, you can't hear the color red, right? Color green, right? How do you like the color of your car? Let me listen over here. I can't. That makes no sense. It's the same thing as saying, trying to understand God. Your understanding, your mind is not the proper vessel, it's not the sense to understand God. Like it says in the Tanya, the chapter 19, the God is above understanding. There's no thought that can grasp it all, God at all. Everything is like a fool. Everyone is like fools. Like King David said, I'm like, how do you say, like an animal. I'm just like an animal with you. Like an animal understands calculus. Even it's easier for an animal to understand calculus than for me to understand God. Animals have understanding. Calculus is an understandable thing. The animals don't have such a mind that they can understand. Not human beings, they can't understand. But nevertheless, it is an idea, and animals do grasp ideas to some degree, right? Pavlov's things, right? They're ringing the bell. They understand. They picture in their mind whatever it is that there's going to be something. So they can. But God, we can't. It's not in the category of understanding at all. That's why King David said, "I'm serving you, God. I love you, God. I'm your representative, God. The Jewish people are sons of God." And nobody can understand what it means. I need to and with that I admit that I can't understand. I realize I can't understand what the essence of God is. Then I'm always with you. That the fact that I am like, I just say, ignorant and like an animal, I'm always with you. In order to reach God's essence is by means of bittul ratzon. You have to surrender yourself above understanding. And therefore, this is called shtut. This is called craziness. This is also with the prophets. The prophets are called crazy. Like it says, Madua bo Meshuga azeh. It says, when a prophet came, this is what, with one of the kings, he said, why is this Meshuga coming? It's a sentence in, I forgot already, it's in the sentence in Judges. Anyway, when a prophet came and he said, this man is a crazy, he's a maniac. At the time when there was prophecy, it says some of the prophets used to remove their clothes. They would remove not just their physical clothes, but they would remove also their their soul garments. What are your soul garments? Intellect and emotions. You become a totally different person. Totally surrendered. This is also the idea of Avshatas Levushim based on Navua. Like that, this is also the thing why the prophets would remove their clothes when they received prophecy. When all the prophets except for Moses, they would like go into a trance before they received their prophecy. Like it says in Shaul, King Saul, he also removed his garments and he also prophesied. The levushim, the garments, they come from the sin of the tree of knowledge. Before Adam ate from the tree, it says Vayushneim Rumim, they were both naked. And they weren't embarrassed. And by means of the sin of the tree of knowledge, what was the sin of the tree of knowledge? God said, don't eat it. And Adam said, it looks good to me. I want to eat it, right? God said, it doesn't look good to me. Don't eat it. And man said, but it looks good to me. And you created me. So I think this time we're going to have to agree that I have the right to disagree. And he ate from the tree, and all of a sudden he knew he was naked. What do you mean he knew he was naked? But when he ate from the tree, there was a new idea of garments. What is garments? In this case, where garments says a false personality, false emotions, and false intellect. Ego, false ego. Yadua, the ikar achet, the main sin of Adam was that he felt mixed good and bad. Because suddenly they knew they were naked. All of a sudden there was a new thing, self-awareness. Herg is mixed with good and bad. You can see this so very clearly in addictions. There's people that are addicted. There's like thousands of things that people get addicted to, but they get addicted and they can't stop. They can't, and they want to stop, but they can't stop. Right? They do things that are bad. They can't stop. Why? Because something which they knew was bad, let's say taking heroin, God forbid. Every normal person knows it's bad. But once he takes it inside of himself, suddenly it becomes good. Suddenly it becomes really good. And everything is mixed up. Anything that stops him from getting this drug is now bad, and everything that enables him to take is good. So all of a sudden, good and bad become all mixed up. What is good and what is bad? Right? Evil becomes good. It makes me feel good. And good is bad because I don't feel anything when I do good things. That's the whole idea of the garments. That's the garments means that it was mixed good and bad. Before Adam ate from the tree, he was naked. There was just the world. God was creating him. Everything was okay. As soon as he started listening to himself, now all of a sudden he became separate from God, right? There's me and there's God. He did it himself. How can you undo this? Simply undo it. That's all. You made it yourself. But B'shorsho, this is a hergesh seichel that a person feels his own mind and his own intellect. Therefore, at the proper time of prophecy, he had to remove them. This is the idea of removing one's own intellect and one's emotions. Hainu liyot bebechinas bittul, namely to surrender your powers and your emotions. Like the Rambam says, the Maimonides says, one of the foundations of Judaism is that God gives prophecy to people, and prophecy falls only on a person who is wise and he is he is powerful. What does it mean he's powerful? That he overpowers his own selfishness, his yetzer. The ein yetzer and his selfishness never overpowers him. That's explained over there. That's why this is called shtut. That's what's called shtut. Shtut because it's above understanding. Because this is the service in the Holy Temple was this way of shtut, as we're going to continue, God willing, tomorrow. Let's see how much do we have to go on. So we try to finish. All right, let's go. Let's try to finish. Here we'll finish. That's what it means. Oh, look, and therefore the tabernacle was made from atzei shittim, from shittim wood. Shittim wood, that means l'mayla miadat, that which is above understanding. God is not comprehensible. Hamidborer, which comes from that which is below normal. They took regular boards and they made it into a holy temple. That's the same thing. God purposely makes us so that we're selfish, and he purposely makes us that we're prone to make mistakes and to be egotistical and do bad things. God made it that way. And the reason he made it that way, like the sacrifices, he purposely gave us animal souls so that we can take it and use it for what the Creator wants us to. That's our energy. That's our happiness. That's what it means. Also, that's what it means. Make me a holy place, and I will dwell within them, within each and every Jew. But this comes by means of avoda, by means of service, a service of a man, of each one of us, by refining the world. Shapoel that it brings about. 1 second. Let's make a pause over here. Hello. אני גומר בעוד 2 דקות. בסדר? 2 דקות? או לא? Hello? Hello. 2 דקות אני גומר. Here it goes. Okay. Let's see where I'm holding over here. Yeah. Okay, good. There are many things that a person does because this is what he's used to do, and he never moves it. Never moves these things. One, like for instance, when he eats, when he drinks, and such like that. But learning Torah and setting times for Torah, right? That he can push away. This is a person that he puts, and it starts thinking about, is there any sort of wisdom in this whatsoever? Who knows when they're going to die? Like it says, Ein Adam Shalit Lomar Tinuli Ache Aseh Cheshbonotai. A person, when it comes time for a person to die, he can't say to the angel of death, oh, time for me to die. Listen, give me 10 minutes. I want to call up somebody. There's no sense. A person, how can a person put all of his soul on a thing which has no meaning in it at all? The importance is making money. The importance is make money, but don't put your whole soul into it. And the main thing you're forgetting about, learning Torah, doing commandments, the whole reason why you're being created in this world. How can you forget about your creator, and think that you're the boss? Because of the ruach shtut, a feeling of insanity that covers over the truth. And this is our service, to transform the foolishness of this world. And a person has to take hold of his soul and set times for learning Torah. And then God dwells among us, that will shine revelation of the light of God in his soul. And that's what it means when there is pushed away and controlled the sitra achra. That by means of this, that a person controls his animal soul and his interest and his excitement about the world, and he puts that excitement into doing Torah and the commandments, then the glory of God spreads out into the whole world, that there spreads what's called Soviv Kolmi, this aspect of the essence of God, and we make the essence of God happy. As we'll talk about more, God willing, tomorrow. And now I'll tell you a story, but first, 1 minute first. 1 minute.